Philosophy as a process has multiple stages: argumentation, criticism, reflection, synthesis, and in its highest degree, the systemization of knowledge. To achieve the systemization of knowledge, philosophers have resorted to universal principles. A universal principle unifies the world and its phenomena. This unification is the real basis of the systemization of knowledge. Currently, the absence of universal principles in philosophical thought causes the fragmentation of philosophy in different visions of reality. A fragmented philosophy cannot give answers to global problems. This impossibility renders itself to become known as the crisis of philosophy. The crisis of philosophy also implies the crisis of humanity. Here, the role of philosophy for the conservation of humanity becomes relevant. A complete philosophy is a real system of knowledge about the whole. The totality is the universe governed by universal laws and principles. This real and objective totality is the basis, the means, and the end of philosophy. A philosophical system must reflect the structure of the whole, in such a way that the philosophical system and the world are an inseparable unit. Being that philosophy is an inseparable unit, it is a means of integration of man to the whole. In this sense, integration as a universal law acquires a universal value for human beings. And as a universal value, it is a reference for the new education of the human being. In this way, philosophy and education are on the same mission and aim to accomplish the same vision. The role of philosophy as a knowledge system at the individual level is to preserve the life of each person at each level of integration: family, society, humanity, and nature. For this purpose, philosophy is based on universal truth to integrate empirical and scientific truth with universal truth. The systemization of the levels of truth in the conscience of the individual by means of philosophy becomes known in the spiritual system of the individual and its level of identity. A spiritual system based on empirical truth becomes an individualistic spiritual system, and therefore, the individual acquires an individualistic identity, while a spiritual system based on universal truth becomes a universal spiritual system. Therefore, the individual acquires a universal identity. The role of philosophy as a knowledge system at a social level is to preserve society within humanity and nature. For this purpose, philosophy is replicated in the social sciences as a tool of influence in society. The success of the conservation of society reflects the success of the social sciences. And the success of the social sciences reflects the success of philosophy as a knowledge system. In the same way, we can say that the crisis of society reflects the crisis of the social sciences, and therefore, the crisis of its founding philosophy. In the absence of universal truth, falsehood seizes the social sciences, leading society towards chaos and destruction. The role of philosophy as a knowledge system at the level of humanity is to preserve human beings within nature. For this purpose, philosophy is based on universal principles and laws that govern the universe, nature, and society. The only way to preserve human beings and nature is by adapting them to the universal principles and laws. Distancing them from universal principles and laws leads to the self-destruction of humanity. The current crisis and self-destruction of humanity reflects the crisis of philosophy, or its absence as a system of universal knowledge. The conservation of humanity implies the conservation of society and the individual. This is the universal mission of philosophy.